New York gubernatorial candidate Cynthia Nixon has a message for corporate Democrats. Your time is up. Now, speaking at a progressive training event in Washington, D.C., Nixon told the crowd, in which, of course, she was a surprise guest. She was not a slated speaker. She told a crowd that was obviously fired up, quote, "This year, thousands of us progressives all over America are running for office for the first time because we're realizing that if we want things to change, we'll need to step up and do it ourselves. This year, each of us has to do whatever we can to take our government back. If we want change, we have to do what we have always done. We have to go out ourselves, and we have to seize it. The time is up for corporate Democrats, for politicians who campaign as Democrats but govern as Republicans." And finally, she says, "It can't be just business as usual anymore. I know that our country can do better. We have to turn the system upside down." So look, that's powerful. That's a powerful speech. It's a powerful message, and it's one I absolutely love. And by the way, she took aim at this during that speech to, of course, the IDC and Governor Cuomo. Now, the IDC, if you're unfamiliar, they're the independent, or were the independent Democratic Conference. Now, they say they're independent, but there was nothing independent about them. In fact, they had caucused with the Republicans in order to stop any sort of progressive policy. Now, that actually benefited Andrew Cuomo. Now, come on, wait a minute. Cuomo, I thought he was a progressive. I mean, he ran on progressive priorities and tried to do all these progressive things that ended up getting stopped by the IDC. But wait a minute, what does that have to do with Cuomo? Well, I'm going to explain that. But first, look, whenever something progressive would come up in the New York legislature, unfortunately, again, as I told you, the IDC, along with the Republicans, would end up blocking it. And then Cuomo would come out and say, "What could I do? What could I do? The IDC and the Republicans. Guess I can't have real reform. Looks like we got to moderate." Now, of course, Nixon is a strong challenger, right? She's got a big name. She's got name recognition, even though that currently she's behind in the polling. But here comes now progressive Cuomo. Now, here's the thing. Now, look, he says, "Oh, no, I'm totally against the IDC. Boy, those Republicans and the IDC, I can't believe these Democrats would go rogue and stymie me for so many years." And I had nothing to do with it, by the way. Really? Well, let's see if that's true. Now, first, I want to go to some news that happened recently. For that, I go to the New York Times. Now, they described a closed-door gathering earlier this month where Cuomo decided to put an end to the IDC, to the end of the infighting between New York Democrats. I'm going to bring unity together. I'm going to bring these two sides together, and we're going to stop that, and we're going to actually pass progressive priorities, right? In fact, he said in this meeting, according to two people who were in the room, "For the good of the party, this has to stop." So he was able to get the leaders of the IDC to say, and the Democratic Party to, for one, dissolve the IDC and join back together. Now, of course, major party power brokers in New York, like, for example, Joe Crowley, attended this meeting where they finally united just days after passing a budget that where Republicans and the IDC essentially got what they want, to stop progress. Now, of course, Cuomo claims that, no, the IDC was the one foil that was stopping me from being more progressive. So, look, and I really want this endorsement by the Working Families Party. I mean, but I tried to pass progressive policy. The IDC and the Republicans, they got together. They stopped me in this unholy alliance, and I was very powerless to stop them. But wait, you just ended the IDC. You could have done that at any time. But you didn't. Look, I'm going to show you this is not true at all. Now, I'm going to go back to a Politico piece that was printed back in 2014. Now, according to multiple sources with deep knowledge of the IDC and Republican conference's dealings, confirm that the governor has not been a passive observer during the formation of the coalition. Politicos learned that Cuomo was deeply involved, they say, and absolutely encouraged the marriage that allowed Republicans to remain in leadership even after the election of a Democratic majority. Furthermore, they say the governor was a key player after the coalition launched, privately offering advice about tactics and messaging. But why? Wait a minute. Again, wasn't Cuomo supposed to be a progressive? I mean, after all, he's representing a very liberal state. Turns out, the governor's interest, say knowledgeable sources, was ensuring that Republicans had control over the agenda in the Senate so that he wouldn't be handing the power over to New York City Democrats. In fact, one source explained, the governor and top aide, Larry Schwartz, made it very clear that he wanted the IDC to work with the Republicans to run the Senate. Understand, he wanted the IDC to work with Republicans to control the Senate. Another recalled that there were many conversations between Schwartz, Cuomo, and Republican leaders, and the governor, during those conversations, had frequently expressed frustration with Democratic Senate leaders and complained that he couldn't work with them. These Democrats, I can't work with them. I'd rather work with you Republicans. Gross. This is the supposedly progressive governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo. Now, look, this is super important now because both Cuomo and Nixon, they're trying to get the endorsement of the Working Families Party. Now, look, they backed Cuomo back in 2010, and again, because of New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. Now, Nixon, as I said, she wants that endorsement. Cuomo wants that endorsement. That's why you've suddenly seen super progressive Cuomo, whereas Nixon apparently has been progressive for quite some time. Now, on Nixon, here's what she said about Cuomo taking corporate money. Quote, "We have too many corporate Democrats like Andrew Cuomo. It's hard for some Democrats to do right when they're getting millions and millions of dollars to do wrong." She also says, "The election of Donald Trump was a wake-up for progressives all across this country, but even before Trump, the establishment was rigging our economy and our government to benefit those on top." Now, let me give you an example of Andrew Cuomo and, his supposed progressivism, right? And actually how much money he's received from corporations to block good policy. Now, this is marijuana legalization, right? Now, look, the progressive position is let's legalize marijuana. Let's end the war on drugs. Let's end mass incarceration and legalize marijuana medically and recreationally because it is not more dangerous than any other drug. In fact, it's less dangerous. It's less dangerous than alcohol. Well, alcohol happens to be something that Andrew Cuomo is in favor of. In fact, Cuomo is opposing or has opposed marijuana for what do you call safety reasons. But, as I'm going to show you, it's not because of safety reasons. It's because of how much money he's received from big alcohol. Now, this was, for that I go to an article in 2017 from David Sirota, who wrote in the International Business Times. He said, "The industry is a major financial backer of Cuomo's political career. His election campaigns have drawn more than $900,000 from alcohol-linked donors, and according to data compiled by the National Institute on Money and State Politics, Cuomo's New York State Democratic Party has pulled in another $200,000 from such donors since 2010. So what did they get in response to this? Other than, of course, blocking marijuana legalization. The governor also had signed a bill creating special tax incentives for New York City alcohol producers. He's also held a series of public summits to tout the production and consumption of alcohol in his state and signed legislation that his office boasted would help, quote, expand recreational production of beer, wine, and cider in New York State. Not only that, but he had been pushing at the time of this article a bill to try to allow movie theaters to sell alcohol. Oh, but no, money has no impact at all on what a politician actually votes for and believes. Well, I'm sure Andrew Cuomo just loved alcohol so much before he got all that money from the alcohol industry. And hell, maybe he did. But look, that is a good example of how money in politics corrupts the system. And no matter how progressive you may tout yourself as, doesn't mean that you're progressive in practice. Andrew Cuomo is kind of like Obama, ran on a progressive platform, but then certainly was not progressive. All this stuff with the IDC, man, it shows that he cannot be trusted, that he is not a progressive champion. It's time that we actually have one. And Nixon, she is clearly more progressive. Unfortunately, she is going up against the New York machine. So, look, you want to talk about machine politics. I mean, you got all these big Democratic strongholds. Well, New York City's one of them. That is an enormous Democratic stronghold. And their machine politics are in play. And they definitely do not want a progressive to win. So, they are very much on the side of Cuomo. Now, that would, of course, show why Nixon is behind in the polls right now. However, if progressives can get out there in New York, they could defeat him. And look, she's got the help of Zephyr Teachout, who ran a pretty good campaign against Cuomo last time. Now they're joining forces. And Cynthia Nixon, she's got that name recognition. She's got the money that she needs. So this is a potentially strong challenger to Cuomo. Now, finally, she said, quote, "If 2016 taught us anything, it's that Democrats can't give voters something to vote against. We have to give them something to vote for." And, of course, her platform, Medicare for all, legalization of recreational marijuana, living wage, things like that. Real progressive policies. So now we know who the real progressive is in the race. And I hope the Working Families Party can see that and can put their might behind the real progressive in the race. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.